Today we're going to talk, amongst other things, about the dreadful agreement announced by the European Union on carrying luggage on airplanes, about why the high-speed train is still traveling so slowly, the latest news on the Santiago Bernabéu and Camp Nou stadiums, the much sought after tickets for the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, the latest news at the about to disappear Gibraltar border, and a specific safety alert relating to Barcelona. Hola, ¿qué tal? Welcome to a channel made by two humans who live in Spain and who spend an absurd amount of time traveling throughout the Iberian Peninsula, so you don't have to do it blindly. And welcome also to the July episode with answers to our followers' questions and news from the world of travel. We'd like to take this opportunity to confirm that the next Q&A video will air on the first Sunday in August. If you have any questions for that video, go ahead and ask now. So, a look at some important travel news first. Chamartín, one of Madrid's two main high-speed rail stations, has just had a major upgrade, and it really shows. We were there recently, and the new departures hall is a huge improvement, brighter, smoother, and far more pleasant to use. The station is not completely finished yet, there's still quite a bit of construction going on, but even so, catching a train from Chamartín now feels like a completely different experience. The term Chamartín is also another name for the Santiago Bernabéu stadium where Real Madrid plays. And here's something to keep in mind. There's major construction going on at the metro station that serves the stadium, which is currently out of service. So for now, if you are heading to the Bernabéu stadium, the bus is a much better option. And sticking with stadiums under renovation, it looks like FC Barcelona may be running into financial issues, something that could drag out the works at the new Camp Nou for quite a while. In the meantime, our advice hasn't changed from what we said in an earlier Q&A session. If you can, it's best to skip the visit for now. And now onto a major story that's been all over the news lately. You may have seen reports or videos saying that after years of negotiations, the European Union has finally reached an agreement to regulate hand luggage on flights, along with other issues like compensation for delays. In reality, though, this deal is a clear climb down by EU authorities in the face of airline lobbying, and essentially nothing really changes. It's a bit of a shell game. If you used to pay to take a cabin bag, you will still be paying. The only real difference is how prices are presented. Before, an airline might say 30 euros for the flight, 20 for the cabin bag. Now they will say 50 with a cabin bag or 30 if you travel without one. It all remains the same. Delay compensation hasn't been updated either. It's been the same for 20 years. We've seen some videos defending the airlines with arguments along the lines of 50 years ago, very few people could afford to fly and tickets were incredibly expensive. If airlines had to include cabin bags for free, prices would just go up. Now, our priority here is the traveler, so let's challenge that argument. There is no need to go back half a century. We are not comparing 1990 with 2026. Charging for cabin bags was introduced by Ryanair in 2018, less than 8 years ago. Other airlines quickly followed when they realized how profitable it could be. Back in 2017, not that long ago, low-cost flights were just as cheap, if not cheaper than today, and you could take a cabin bag and even choose your seat without paying extra, and the airlines were not going bust. Another argument I find quite amusing is the claim that most travelers now fly without cabin bags by choice. Of course we do. I'd much rather travel for a weekend with a small backpack than pay double what I paid for the ticket just to bring a proper carry-on. But let's be honest, that's not anyone's preferred choice. There is one thing that's beyond dispute. The airlines have welcomed this agreement. I rest my case. If the airlines are celebrating, no amount of spin can change it. It's a bad deal for consumers. Now, if you've been on a high-speed train recently and actually glanced at the little screens showing the speed, you might have felt slightly shortchanged. For much of the journey, especially on the busy Madrid to Barcelona corridor, the train is nowhere near 300 kilometers per hour as before. Trips that used to take around 1 hour 20 minutes are now closer to 2 hours. So, what's going on? In short, it's a knock-on effect of the fatal accident back in January. Since then, there's been a much more cautious approach. No one wants to take responsibility for another incident. Until the track upgrades are fully completed, trains simply won't return to top speeds. As for how long this will last, there is no clear timeline. We take these trains quite often and we've already adjusted our plans. In the grand scheme of things, the difference isn't huge, but it is definitely noticeable. We've had quite a few questions from people with reduced mobility about what kind of assistance is available at airports and railway stations. And the good news is there's help at both. At airports, you should request assistance when you buy your ticket. If you forget, you can still do it at check-in time. Once you arrive in Spain, staff from Aena, the public company that operates the airports, will be there to assist you through the airport. For high-speed trains, Adif, the company that manages the stations, offers a service called Acerca. Again, it's best to request it when booking, but if you don't, just arrive at the station with plenty of time and go to the Acerca desk. They will help you and your luggage onto the train, and someone will be waiting at your destination to assist you off. All of these services are free and available to passengers with reduced mobility, as well as elderly travelers and single mothers with small kids. Major changes coming at the Gibraltar border, and they are happening right now. Following the agreement between the Spanish and British authorities, the border controls you see today are being removed. So walking into Gibraltar will no longer involve any checks, and lines and waiting times will be a thing of the past. The only passengers going through border control will be those arriving by air under the new EES system and related procedures. While we are on Gibraltar, there's also an update on the cable car. The old one has already been removed and it's currently being replaced with a more modern system expected to start operating towards the end of 2027. In the meantime, if you want to reach the top of the rock, and you really should, there's an electric shuttle service running as an alternative. And this is actually the perfect moment to dip into our video archive and revisit our Gibraltar guide. It's a fascinating destination and one that many visitors don't fully appreciate. We mentioned this on our last Q&A, but it's worth repeating. The Pope's visit to the Sagrada Familia has pushed demand through the roof, and that's for a monument that was already the most visited in Barcelona. Not long ago, you could book tickets a week in advance and still find plenty of availability. That's no longer the case. If you are planning to go inside, you will need to book well ahead. And one more thing, and this is where we go back to our video archive. Don't overpay for your tickets. A lot of people do, often following advice from dishonest content creators. And frankly, we think that's just not right. Still in Barcelona, one of our followers recently had a luxury watch stolen in broad daylight in Paseo de Gracia, one of the city's most upscale areas. Now, this is not new. There have been organized gangs targeting high-end watches for years. But it's a good moment to remind you, there's really no need to walk around with thousands of euros on your wrist. Barcelona is a fantastic city, but when it comes to high-value theft, these gangs are extremely skilled and often stay one step ahead of the police. It's simply not worth the risk. A quick tip: if you are in Madrid in July, the lavender fields in Brihuega are at their absolute best this time of the year. We cover it in more detail in our video on the best day trips from Madrid, but the key thing is timing. Don't leave it too late. Once the lavender is harvested, often towards the end of the month, there's really not much to see. And finally, a quick reminder: this isn't really news, but just the reality of traveling in Spain right now. We are heading into peak tourist season with record numbers of tourists in the country. Airports and railway stations have been operating over capacity for quite some time, and in the summer it really shows. Give yourself plenty of time, avoid tight connections, arrive early, and be prepared for delays. And this year there's a new factor to keep in mind at airports: EES. It's only likely to add more pressure to the system. Local authorities, airlines are urging the European Union authorities to suspend EES for the time being, given the chaos its operation is causing. And let's start with the questions. First, the questions from channel members, which we address with special, more detailed attention. Remember that for the price of a cup of coffee, you can become a channel member, a way to support the way we do. Simone would like to know if ETIAS has anything to do with the Travel to Europe app. Simone, no, it has nothing to do with it. ETIAS, which doesn't exist yet, will be a pre-authorization form that you will have to fill in before you even board the plane. When ETIAS becomes mandatory, there will be a very detailed video here on the channel. Travel to Europe is an app linked to the EES, a system for checking biometric and other data that you need to complete as soon as you arrive at the airport. We invite you to watch the video where we explain in great detail what the EES is. Travel to Europe is being marketed as a major advantage, but we personally don't think it is, partly because it doesn't let you skip the queues. So if you decide not to use Travel to Europe, it won't make much difference to your experience. And Simone also wants to know if January is too cold a month to visit Seville and which airport is closest to the city, and how many days we recommend spending in Ronda when traveling from Seville. Simone, the concept of cold is very relative. It's not the same for someone from Canada or for someone from Texas, but in January, temperatures usually range between 6 and 15 degrees Celsius. If you travel to Ronda in the morning, stay overnight in the town, and return to Seville the following afternoon, you should have enough time to explore the town at a leisurely pace. Claudia heard us mention the 3 channels we have and wants to know what they are. Claudia, we have 3 channels with similar content. One in English, the one you're watching now, one in Spanish, and one in Portuguese. Links in the first comment below the video. Jetty asks a very interesting question about a pass for traveling around Portugal by train for a month. She says there isn't any useful information on the website about where you can go, the best routes, or the terms and conditions. Jetty, the truth is that there is actually quite a lot of information online. We'll leave you the link to the CP website so you can have a look. They explain everything in detail there. But you haven't mentioned a key piece of information. Are you Portuguese or a resident in Portugal? Because that pass is only valid for Portuguese nationals or foreign nationals legally resident in Portugal, which is why we haven't covered it in much detail here on the channel. Luisiana is here for 9 days and wants to visit Madrid, Granada and Seville. She'd like to know how many days to spend in each city, and she'd also like to go on day trips, visit a winery and see the white villages. For Granada and Seville, Louisiana, we recommend a minimum of 3 nights in each city, which wouldn't leave you much time for Madrid and absolutely no time for anywhere else. You could keep your time in Madrid to a minimum. You can always come back in the future and include a night in Cordoba, which is the other must-see destination in Andalusia and which you will be passing through anyway. You could do Madrid, Seville, Granada, Cordoba, or Madrid, Granada, Seville, Cordoba. The order doesn't matter too much. Carlos Eduardo is traveling to Extremadura in September and wants to travel from Madrid to Plasencia by train. However, he notes that the section between Monfragüe and Plasencia is closed due to engineering works and is being served by a replacement bus service provided by the train operator. On the website, the notice states that the disruption will only last until the beginning of August, but when he checks the route for September, the bus service is still listed. He wants to know if this train-bus combination is worth it. He is also considering traveling directly by bus operated by the company Cebesa and would like to know our opinion. On the Plasencia to Cáceres section, the same problem with the bus service arises again. We've just returned from Extremadura, where we went to put together a train itinerary which unfortunately won't be ready until after your trip. The transfer to the bus in Monfragüe is very straightforward. The station is tiny, and as soon as you get off the train, you can already see the bus parked less than 50 meters away waiting for the passengers. It's very easy both on the Madrid-Plasencia leg and on the second leg, Plasencia to Cáceres. Construction notices are always a bit of a surprise. It may be that the works will be completed by the announced date in August and that the bus transfer information will disappear. Our hunch is that Renfe, the train operator, continues to list the bus for dates in September as a safeguard in case the works aren't finished by the initially announced deadline. We decided to travel around Extremadura by train because that's our first choice whenever possible. We did not consider traveling by coach, so we cannot share any personal experience of the Cebesa company. What we can say, however, is that the train is very comfortable and air conditioned, which is really important because it can get very hot in September. We hope you have a fantastic trip. Extremadura is wonderful. Claudia wants to know if we've traveled on the Transcantábrico yet. For those who are not familiar with it, the Transcantábrico is a luxury train that travels along the north coast of Spain. The usual duration of the trip is 8 days, 7 nights, and the cheapest fare for that ticket per person is 17,000 euros, which includes all expenses on board the train and trips. And no, we haven't done it yet, nor do we have any plans to do so. Personally, we can't think of a million other ways to spend that money on travel. We've seen videos of people who've done the trip, but when you read between the lines, because they don't make it clear, they were invited. And of course, someone telling me about a trip doesn't strike me as quite as credible when they've paid for it out of their own pocket as when they have received an invitation, which they are also keeping from us. So, dear Claudia, I'm afraid we won't be able to provide you with first-hand information about that train. But if you would like us to look into any specific details, such as what's included and what isn't, just let us know. Best wishes. And now, the questions from non-channel members. We will be more direct here. Alda has booked the Ana Belén hostel in Madrid and wanted to know if the location is good. Alda, it's in Puerta del Sol, in the heart of Madrid, a very good location for sightseeing in the city. In the video about the best areas to stay in Madrid, you will find our description of the area. Now, you need to research the location of the accommodation where you want to stay before you book it, not after the booking has already been made. That's the logical order of things. We assume you are familiar with what a hostal is. It's neither a hostel nor a hotel. In the video we made explaining what it is, you will find out more. Marcelo wants to know which websites we recommend for stays of 30 days or more in cities across Spain. Marcelo, we are going to owe you a reply on this one because we know absolutely nothing about this type of accommodation. As we always rule out Airbnb, we talked about this in the previous Q&A video, we will start our search by looking at apart hotel websites. Rosana wants to know if taxi fares in Madrid have gone up because of the rise in fuel prices. Rosana, they haven't gone up, and fuel prices haven't gone up so much in Spain as compared to other places. Taxi fares are regulated, will only change when the authorities allow them to do so. Jackson wants to know if he might be turned away at immigration because the self-service kiosk is out of order. If the kiosk isn't working, your EES will be processed manually. You will not be turned away because the machine is out of order. What matters is that you strictly comply with immigration requirements. Jose Miguel wants to know if the new card payment system on the Madrid Metro also works on commuter trains, specifically the one that goes to the airport. Jose Miguel, the new card payment system on the Metro is for the Metro, but you have been able to pay by card on trains for many years now. You can find all the details on how it's done in the video about airport transportation. Card payment for train rides is a much better deal than for metro rides. Marta suggests a video about budget-friendly places because everything has become so expensive. It's an interesting suggestion, but you haven't specified what you mean by places. Restaurants, accommodation, destinations, in which city? A bit difficult to reply to your question. Silvana asks us a question that's been asked here before, whether we have any videos about Galicia beyond Santiago de Compostela. And no, we don't have anything yet. We know the region, but we visited before we started the channel. We'll have to go back. Maria is going on a tour of Europe and then wants to stay on for longer. And she wants to know if she needs to apply for an extension. Maria hasn't told us what type of passport she has, which makes it difficult for us to answer. In any case, when you enter Europe for the first time, you will need to show a return ticket back home, proof of where you will be staying each day of your visit, both during the organized part of the tour and when you are traveling independently, and you will also have to prove financial means for the duration of your stay. If you don't need a visa, you don't need to apply for an extension. Maru is coming back to Barcelona for 4 days and wants to know if that will give her enough time to visit the Val de Núria and the Monastery of Montserrat. Maru, yes, given that you've already been to Barcelona, you will have enough time. You will need at least 1 day for each of the trips. More details on the video with the best day trips from Barcelona. Cecilia and Julio are traveling together to Madrid. One of them has a Spanish passport and the other one from Argentina, and they want to know whether they need to complete the EES procedures separately. They also want to know if the process can be sped up by stating that they are on a short stay visit. We've discussed all these several times on the channel before. We recommend you watch the video addressing questions about the EES. The person with a Spanish passport can stand next to the other person whilst they complete the EES process. You cannot speed up the EES process, but in the immigration queue, you can mention that you have a short connection so that they can help you get through more quickly if necessary. Lady Grace lives in Buenos Aires in Argentina and says she's thinking of traveling to Spain on a cruise. She'd like to know which ports in our country are suitable and what the pros and cons are. If you're thinking of going on a transatlantic cruise, we assume that's what you mean. You won't be able to choose the port. You'll have to go to whichever one the few cruise lines offering this type of cruise, known as repositioning cruise, take you to on very specific dates throughout the year. They usually depart from Brazil and end in Barcelona. If any of you watching the video would like us to talk about cruises around the Iberian Peninsula, let us know and we can put together a video. We have some experience and know quite a few ports from a cruise passenger's perspective. Pedro wants to know if Sitges is a good choice for a half day at the beach. He also wanted a recommendation for a book we mentioned in previous programs on the Spanish Civil War by Julián Casanova, who was my contemporary history professor at university. Pedro, we have a video about Sitges where you will be able to get an idea of what it has to offer. We don't know where you are from, but we don't think the beaches are anything to write home about. We certainly wouldn't go to Sitges for the beaches, which if you were to visit in high season would be absolutely packed. But an entire day trip to Sitges, great idea. 2 books by Julián Casanova, The Spanish Republican Civil War and A Short History of the Spanish Civil War. Horacio asks us a question that's been asked here I don't know how many times. How long does a passport need to be valid for to enter Spain? It must be valid for 3 months from the date you leave Europe. You can check the rest of the requirements in the video on immigration requirements. Aldo is visiting Spain in October. They've already got their tickets for the Alhambra in Granada and want to know what other tickets they should book in advance for Seville and Granada. Well, you've already got the most important ones, which are the tickets for the Alhambra. The others you should book in advance, it might be a matter of weeks rather than months, are for the Cathedral and the Alcázar in Seville. We have a video on the channel where we go through the main tourist attractions in Spain, for which it's a good idea to book tickets in advance. As always, links below the video. Addison wants to know if we have any videos on Andorra. And as a matter of fact, we do quite a few, including a detailed road trip. It is a country where we have been many times and which we simply love. Links below the video. Rafik wants to know how early should he reach the airport when flying from Madrid or Malaga, and if you have to go through EES when departing. Rafik, it all depends on whether you are taking a domestic or an international flight, and also whether you are flying in high season or regular season. For international flights, specifically in the case of those airports, we would not arrive with less than 3 hours. For domestic flights, 2 hours. Increase that time if you are flying during the high season. And if your flight is leaving the European Union, you will go through EES on departure as well, add even more time. Sophie Coot wants to know if we recommend visiting Montserrat in the summer. Montserrat can be visited all year round. We would only avoid it in the summer if there were a heat wave, although temperatures in the mountains are usually cooler than in Barcelona. We have a recent video with a suggested itinerary for a day in Montserrat. Orlando would like us to talk about the Fiestas del Pilar in Zaragoza. Orlando, have a look at the video on things to do in Zaragoza. We talk about the fiestas there. Marisela has arthritis in her knee and wants to know if she can walk from Terminal 1 to Terminal 2 at Madrid Airport. Marisela, it is possible to walk, and in fact, it is the only option you have. The distance depends entirely on the location of the boarding gates, and if you are unlucky, it can be quite a long walk, about 20-25 minutes for an average person. But in your case, request assistance so that you can be taken in a wheelchair. Someone will be waiting for you at the aircraft exit and you won't have to worry about putting unnecessary strain on your body. It's a free service we talked about earlier that you must request from the airline before you fly. Chris wants to know what New Year's Eve is like in Spain and what the best way to spend it in Madrid is. New Year's Eve is a very low-key event. Basically, people gather together in public spaces for the midnight, for the coming of the new year, and then either you go back home or go to a private party. In Madrid, you can either brave the crowds to get into Puerta del Sol. Only a limited number of people are allowed in, so you have to queue for quite a while, or go to a private party, or do nothing at all. Juarez wants to know if there are immigration checks on a flight between Porto and Madrid. As we have explained countless times here on the channel, there are no immigration checks on flights within countries that form part of the Schengen area, which includes Portugal and Spain. Rosa Lisi was advised to bring a bicycle-style padlock to secure her suitcase on the train and prevent theft. And she wants to know if this precaution is necessary. Rosa Lisi, it's absolutely unnecessary. In over 200 high-speed train trips, we've never used it, and we've probably seen that padlock just the one time. Be sure to watch the video about luggage on the high-speed train where, among other topics, we discuss security. Saraiva is traveling from Girona to Barcelona and wants to visit Montserrat on the way and wants to know if there is a safe place to park down there. Yes, there is a huge car park and it is free, but it has no security and it is in the middle of nowhere. Personally, if we had to leave a car loaded with luggage in that car park, we'd be worried. At the top of the mountain, there is a paid car park where we would also be a bit worried if we had to leave a car full of luggage. We've mentioned this many times before. Parking a car full of luggage is a risky business. Not long ago, an acquaintance of ours had their car broken into in a car park near a major tourist attraction in Spain. What a headache. Andres wants to know whether we classify holiday apartments listed on sites such as Booking.com in the same category as Airbnb properties. And yes, Andres, generally speaking, there are always exceptions. If it's what's known in many places as a VUT, where a neighbor is replaced by a tourist, we treat it in the same way as Airbnb, as we discussed in the previous Q&A video, where incidentally, we were pleasantly surprised to find that many people share our view on the matter. Kim bought a train ticket from Barcelona to Madrid, but meant to book Barcelona to Zaragoza and wants to know if he can get off the train at Zaragoza. If the train stops in Zaragoza, not all the trains do, you will certainly be able to get off the train, but to continue your trip from Zaragoza to Madrid, you will need a new train ticket. Agustin asks us which towns in Galicia we would recommend. The towns that should be included on any basic itinerary for logistical reasons would be La Coruña, Santiago de Compostela, Pontevedra and Vigo. And then you should pepper the itinerary with plenty of smaller towns that are just as interesting, as well as other cities such as Lugo and Orense. Cleo wants to know if we have any information about a day trip to Frigiliana from Malaga. We haven't posted anything on the channel yet, but we've already done this day trip ourselves in a hire car. We went to Frigiliana in the morning and spent the afternoon in Nerja nearby before returning to Malaga. By public transport, you will need to take a bus to Nerja and then take another bus to Frigiliana. Juan Carlos wants to know, apart from the Alhambra, which other places in Andalusia require tickets to be bought in advance. This question is very similar to one we've answered before. Under normal circumstances, we would say the Cathedral and the Alcázar in Seville and the Picasso Museum in Malaga. But what we are experiencing in Spain right now is far from normal. The overwhelming influx of tourists has changed the game in a way that has completely thrown us off balance. It may be that the Mosque of Cordoba is another of those places where advanced booking is recommended, but it's very difficult to say. Betu asks a question that has appeared here before, if we can recommend a tour operator to visit Spain. And the answer is that we have no experience whatsoever on that field, that we do everything on our own and work to help those that want to visit Spain on their own. A trip that provides an experience far superior in all regards to that you get from an organized tour. Sorry, we cannot recommend a company. Francisco has a few quick questions. He wants to know how far in advance he should depart from his hotel to catch the train to Segovia. He's staying at the Rio Madrid. He also wants to know which terminal Iberia flights from Santiago de Chile to Madrid arrive at and where he can collect his luggage. And finally, he wants to know whether he should buy his train tickets in advance or on arrival in Spain. To avoid any stress whatsoever, we would aim to leave the hotel 90 minutes before the train's departure time. As mentioned earlier, please bear in mind that Chamartín station, where the train departs from, is currently undergoing building works. Your Iberia flight will arrive at T4S. You will collect your luggage at T4. We'll leave you with a video explaining how to make that journey. As for your last question, and to avoid causing an uproar amongst the channel regular viewers who have seen that question answered time and time again, we won't answer it here, but we will leave you a link to a video about mistakes on the high-speed train where you will find the answer to a costly mistake. A user with a company name wants to know if we have any information about Italy. They also want to know whether it's easier to visit Zaragoza from Madrid or from Barcelona, as they are planning to come in August. We don't have any information about Italy, only about the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal, Andorra, and Gibraltar. And Zaragoza is the same distance from Madrid as it is from Barcelona, so it makes no difference whether you visit it from one city or from the other. That said, Zaragoza can be a very tough place to visit in August due to the heat. And a user with an unpronounceable name is suffering from that very same heat in Madrid and would like us to do a video on how to refresh in the city during the summer months. Well, rather than a video on how to cope with extreme heat, what we published some time ago is a video for everyone to rethink Spain as a summer destination due to the increasingly longer and more severe heat waves, which now are being registered anytime from May to October. And with this user, we wrap up this month's Q&A. Thank you for joining us. And a special shout out to all the followers we met during our trips in June at railway stations and in the region of Extremadura. We hope to continue meeting many more followers on our upcoming trips. In the meantime, have a great month of July. We're here next week with a new video.